Hello, thank you for coming on to SA Talk today. It is August 15th, 2014, and I'm super duper uber excited as usual because I love San Antonio and all the fabulous people here to have Miss Denise Thompson in with us, and you are going to love her story, love her mission. She's a therapist, a coach, and an author, and she's been in the military for over 23 years, and she's reinventing her own life, and she's going to be speaking on the Royal Caribbean cruise. The ship is called The Brilliance of the Seas, and they're doing this whole reinvention retreat. So if you haven't made plans, Google it. So I'm very excited to start with Ms. Denise this morning. Thank you for coming on.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
I am super duper uber excited. So when is the reinvention retreat?
It is January 22nd through the 26th of 2015.
Oh, okay. So we have time to save our money, save our pennies.
Yes.
All right. And that's going to be, and so you're gone from like a Sunday to Sunday, or how does that work?
It actually leaves Tampa, so the port out of Tampa, and it leaves on a Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
And you're at sea for 3 full days. It leaves from Tampa to Cozumel.
Ooh.
And while we're at sea, before we get to Cozumel, then the reinvention retreat is going on for anybody who signs up.
Awesome. And so you're Thursday through Sunday?
Yes.
Awesome. So that means you can still make your Monday night Zumba class over at Smash. Don't be trying to skip out on your Monday night workout. I feel like when I go under palm trees, I just feel refreshed. So I can imagine Cozumel is going to be amazing. So you're going to be a speaker all 3 days or one of the 3 days? When is your?
There's actually 2 days of the retreat. So we leave Tampa and you're at sea that night and all next day. And so the first day of the workshop then is Friday. And there's approximately 12 to 15 presenters who are presenting on different topics in regards to personal, career, and business growth. So I will be presenting on both of the days at sea so that people have a chance to go to different presentations and choose what fits their life, choose what will help them to reinvent themselves, to build their business, to do personal growth. So it's really a great opportunity to cruise and then also look at where are you at in life and what do you need to do differently.
Yeah, I've been on a cruise once in my life, and that was many years ago. And it was one of those cruises where it was 7 days, 6 islands, and the 7th day you were just all at sea going back. And I remember at night being at the top of the ship with the reggae band and just looking out, and it's so dark out there at sea, you can see all the stars. And then you look out at the vastness of the ocean and you just realize, wow, I'm like this teeny tiny on, the scope of the universe. And then you really do get into your thoughts so much deeper because you're like, wow, what is my purpose? What was I created to do and be? So that just sounds fabulous. Of course, when I went on my cruise, I was finishing out my graduate degree and I was like, whee! I was just ready to graduate. But now that I've had a lot more 27th birthdays, definitely, you come to that point in your life where you're like, okay, I've done this, and this was really great, and this really helped a lot of people, and now I'm ready to take it to another level. And that's kind of what you're doing, leaving the military, and then now going into this. And so you're doing motivational speeches, not only on there, but do you do them anywhere else?
Well, yes, one of the things, when you talk about a reinvention retreat, one of the reasons that it really attracted me is, first of all, it's one of the things on my bucket list. I've been doing trainings and speaking probably for the last 20 years. Most of the time, though, it has been on something related to mental health because that's also my background and that's what I do in the military. And it's what I've also done in my civilian life. So I'm sort of transitioning or reinventing myself from being a therapist, doing trainings on trauma-related topics, stress management, those sorts of things, to doing transformational speaking, helping people realize what are their skills, what are their assets, what are their talents that they may not have tapped into, but they're feeling like they want to make changes in their lives. So this opportunity came up and I thought, this fits with where I'm at, with what I want to do and how I want to help people, not necessarily from the mental health perspective, but to help them from a growth perspective.
Wow.
And really get in touch with themselves. Like you said, when you went on that cruise and you realized really how large is the universe, but how often do we really tap into what we can do in the universe and what we have to help grow ourselves, but also share with others. So I'm really excited that not only am I doing this in my life and being a model for others, but now I get to go on a cruise, and instead of just enjoying it, because I'll have time to enjoy the stars and the reggae band and things like that, but also I'm helping other people. And so
that's the most empowering thing. I love and I love helping, and I love people who love to help others and empower others. You know, when I partnered up with my business partner Lisa, Vegas Stiletto Fitness, her whole thing is about empowering women, and yours is more both genders. You can do it for men and women. Now, how young do you start working with people? If you know they come to you, I don't know.
Well, one of the things, even though I have a background in working with children and parents and I've done marital therapy, I'm looking more at working with adults. And again, when you're working with adults, sometimes their need to deal with their children differently can come up, and that's fine. But it's really working with individuals who know that they want to make some changes and know that maybe what they're doing right now isn't as fulfilling as it could be. It's also working with people who maybe they have to make a transition. Maybe they've lost a job, they're getting out of the military, possibly there's been a significant loss in their life. So it's also helping them through that and helping them to recognize whatever they're dealing with right now, the stressors, the pain, the discomfort, that there can be an end to that and helping them in that process.
So as a beacon of like stress relief is what you can provide for them, is helping them kind of guide them through the murky waters of change.
Yeah.
Because it is scary. Change is scary. I know. I sometimes I get a little nervous. I know it doesn't look like it sometimes, but I do. I just think, how did I end up going from a massage therapist, personal trainer, into a multipreneur? It's like, how did I? And I always say, though, it's the grace of God. I'm very, spiritual. And so when you counsel people, do you talk about the 5 aspects of health, like the emotional, the mental, the physical, spiritual, and all that? So you help them with all that as well, or?
Right. And interesting enough, one of the things that I'm talking about on the cruise is resiliency. And when you look at resiliency, we have to look at all areas of our life. We can't just focus on, I am going to be so physically fit that I can deal with any stressor, anything that happens in my life. Because what are you doing emotionally? What are you doing mentally? What are you doing spiritually? And so in some ways, it really is that holistic approach to dealing with stress, to being resilient, to deal with whatever crisis may come up in our life. So it's very important to look at that from a holistic perspective. Because again, you talk about a 3-legged chair or 4-legged, however many legs there might be, but if you take one away, what happens? There's an imbalance. Now, it may right itself, but it might not be a comfortable place to sit.
Oh, that's profound. I like that. It may right itself, but you're not going to, and the goal is to be comfortable and to be happy. And when you come from a place of joy, then you can spread joy. But if you come from a place of pain, usually you inflict pain on others, right? People who are hurt other people. Is that what you find? Yeah,
and one of the things that we had talked about earlier was Facebook and social media. And
thank God for Facebook.
And one of the things that I've been looking at is how people present themselves on Facebook and how are they using Facebook. And you can tell when people are posting negative things, and not that we won't post things that are sad. I mean, all of the posts about Robin Williams' suicide were sad, but some were also positive in that it was allowing people to talk about reaching out to others. And it was posting the 1-800 number, 800-273-TALK, for people to contact if they're having problems and thinking about suicide or they're depressed. But when we have somebody who's chronically negative, or it's a very negative, derogatory Facebook page, people who are always viewing that, they're taking away that negativity. One of the things I have found is there's some groups that I had originally friended, and then I ended up deleting them because it wasn't positive for me. It wasn't adding to anything in my life. So I think that Facebook, social media can be very positive if we're using it wisely.
I know I do have some Facebook friends, and I love them all. I love all y'all. But there are some that are very negative, and that's just their theme in their life. And, you know, sometimes I'm known to, like, be like, hey, how are your kids? You know, they're a joy, they're a blessing. They might be a lot of work, you know. But there's, like, negative words and bad language, and I'm just like, wow, if you're putting that on Facebook, I'm probably thinking you're probably putting that in your home and taking it to your work. And then you're wondering, you know, why does the universe hate me? And it's not that the universe hates you. It's just reflecting, I think, that energy. And but I do love Facebook. I'm always attached to my little alerts there. And I was kicked off. Did you know I was kicked off because I had forgotten my password, and I was like frantically trying to remember the password, and it said, please try again in 24 hours. I was like, boo, my life. I was like, okay, what do I do now? I was like, everything looks different. Nothing had changed at all. But it was funny because with Facebook now, we can connect with people who we've never met, never seen, and comfort them in their hard times and try to be, you know, inspirational to them. And so I'm sure when you're connecting with your friends, do you find that they kind of seek you out and are like, hey, I'm going through this. What would you say or recommend?
Well, I think one of the things that I have found on Facebook is mutual support. So not only with friends that I've known, and we've been able to do things, you know, physically, face-to-face, and spend time together, but the groups that I'm involved with, yeah, somebody will post, hey, say a prayer for me because I'm going through this, or hey, I have an interview tomorrow, can you all have some positive affirmations? So we can post those things. And like I said, we don't stay in that negative realm because yes, if you're negative, you continue to create that in your life and in the lives of others. So, but it's asking for support in a positive way and not dwelling on what might be negative or what you can't change, but you know, can you pray for me, send positive affirmations, things like that.
I love it. Now, what I super love about you too is that you were in the military for 23 years. And so now you're on reserves.
Correct.
But for 23 years, you did this mental health counseling through the military. So did you go in like right after high school, or did you go to college and then go in? How did that work?
I went in after I had my master's degree. I'm a clinical social worker.
Oh, bless your heart.
Thank you.
Angel work. Oh, yes, it is.
And I received my master's from Florida State University, and I was working in Georgia in a psychiatric hospital. And not to date myself, but Desert Shield was starting up in 1990. So the summer of 90,
wow.
We were, you know, as a nation looking to go into Iraq for the first Gulf War. And for whatever reason, I thought, oh, I should probably go into the military and help them out.
How sweet are you?
Or how naive was I? I'm not sure. My parents, when I told them, were like, but you never really took direction or orders very well. How are you going to go into the military?
Yeah.
You know, and I was thinking, oh, but I'm going to be an officer. Like I knew what that meant
Yeah,
at 25.
exactly.
I don't know. But no, I'm going to be a social worker. I'll still help people. So, so I went into the military, and I didn't go to the first Gulf War. And so I spent my first 4 years on active duty, and I lived in California, and I also lived in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
So such a great experience.
Yeah.
To, you know, live in another country.
Completely different cultures. California, whoop, whoop, and I don't know that Turkey is all the whoop, whoop.
Yeah, and especially right after the Gulf War, it was still, you know, there was still a lot of...
sensitive times.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yes. So I got off after my first tour, was still a reservist, returned home to Iowa, and started doing social work and doing my military commitment part-time. And so I was in Iowa, living happily. I was in a private practice group. I was teaching at a local college. You know, so my life was fine, and I was having fun. And then September 11th of 2001.
Yes.
And we all remember when the Twin Towers were hit and the Pentagon. And I was called back to duty that day.
Oh.
So called back to the Air Force Reserve Command Surgeon General's office to provide mental health support to the Reserve Command and to figure out what might we need to do, because we didn't know what was going to go on with our military. And
it was such a crazy time.
Yes.
Oh, nobody knew what to think, what was going to happen. So people like you were like angels trying to help us cope, I'm sure. And so what I love is that, like you said, your parents were like, why are you going into the military? So I have a funny story for you. So my dad always tried to push me into the military. Oh, you're a crazy kid, you don't care, you got to go in the military, do your 20 years and then you can start your life. And of course, when you're 16, 18, and you think 20 years from now, oh my gosh, I'm going to be like, what, 40? And I was like, oh, Dad, of course now. 40 doesn't sound so old anymore. But I went into I believe it was an Army recruiting center with my, she lives down in McAllen. She used to live in McAllen, then she moved to New York. But she's my mom's cousin's cousin. So I was visiting family, and I said, come on, Toya, let's go to the recruiting center. And her brother went to West Point. But she was definitely, edgier. And she was like, oh, I don't want to go. And I was like, well, my dad keeps pushing me. I have to go get these pamphlets at least. Come on, let's go. So I go, and my hair is all curled, and I'm wearing my little dress and my cute little purse. And she's like more jeans and boots and like, kind of like a little vest thing kicking. And she's absolutely gorgeous, And so we walk in, and they look at both of us, and I'm like, hi. And they're like, hi, how can we help you? And I was like, yeah, we're here for some information. So they look at both of us, and they start directly talking to her. And she's like, oh, no, not me. She's like, my brother and this and that. And she's like, it's her. And so I was like, yeah, I'd like some information. And they're like, oh, okay. When I have my nails at the time and, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, yeah, my dad told me to come in because I could travel and get some free education. I was like, do I get to pick where I get to go? Because I'd really like to go to Italy. I've always wanted to go to France. Can I pick where I go? And they're like, well, what are you interested in? I said, oh, I love health. I teach aerobics. And they're like, oh, medical maybe. And I was like, sure, a doctor. Yeah, we could do medical. That sounds fun. I was like, and then they were like, okay. And he says, well, the good news is you can keep your long hair. He goes, but you can't have nails. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, And he goes, and you'll just have to put your hair in a bun for when you show up. And I was like, oh, I'm really bad at doing my hair. Do you think there's somebody on staff that could like maybe help me? Because that would really help me a lot. And what time do we really start? Because my dad tells me it's like really early. And they were just looking around like, am I on candid camera or what? I was just so sincerely like, can I just do what I want? And then he's like, yeah, so I'm sure somebody will help you. And I was like, oh, good. I was like, because it'd be really great if someone was on staff to help me because I don't want to bug anybody. And then I was like, so do I have to wear that camouflage green? I was like, because it kind of makes me look like I have jaundice. It doesn't really go with my skin tone. Can I do maybe something in a lighter bluish color? Do I have to go with another service branch to do that? Or, and he was like, yeah. So he was like, here are your pamphlets. He's like, take them to your dad. Tell him you stopped by. And if you have any more questions, come on back, let me know. I was like, okay, great, thanks, bye. And I was like, wow, that was fun, huh? My cousin was like, oh, brother. And so then the Private Benjamin movie had come out, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I see me. That was totally me, right? I was like, can I have pink? Can we give up our own pink sheets? Because I really like to have a pink pillowcase. I need the satin so it doesn't give me hair issues. But, that's the thing is as a woman in the military, and for so long, how did you see the woman's roles kind of change? Because I know that there was some controversy about, maybe some people were being a little more aggressive with the girls than they should. And you were a counselor that went in and tried to help solve some of those issues, or how did that work?
Well, I think as with any organization or business that is changing, its structure, that is trying to change the demographics. Because if we look back at our military, there's been significant changes in the demographics. And not only with women, but with minorities, with homosexuals. And so I think that there's been this evolution. And I don't think that it's necessarily anyone's fault that we didn't have the evolution earlier on, because we sort of also represent our society. So I think that attention has been given to the changes that have been necessary to be more inclusive and to make sure that anybody who comes into the military has an opportunity. But also with that evolution occurring, there are times that it is more difficult, or that it has been more difficult in the past for everyone to necessarily have the same, you know, opportunities and things like that. But I think that the military also identifies what people need to do to get ahead. And I think if people are concentrating on doing their job, on doing their continuing education, that they can have the opportunities to move up through the ranks. But in some ways, it is a male-dominated society within the military. And so I think if people understand that, not that that should not allow them to move forward, but it's also understanding what do I need to do and do the best job that I can. And then if there's something that's not right or something that seems to be discriminatory, then it's going through the channels to bring that to somebody's attention. You know, you sort of alluded to possibly the sexual assaults that have been occurring in the military. And I don't know that the sexual assaults that have occurred in the military are so much higher than the sexual assaults that occur in the civilian world. But oftentimes when we look at military and the issues that are there, sometimes it gets more attention and it gets noticed more often, because we've had sexual assaults, you know, in the civilian world forever. But we haven't given that as much of attention, even when we look at domestic violence and child abuse and things like that. So I think that the military has stepped up. That doesn't mean that everybody reports. It doesn't mean that all the cases are handled in as positive and appropriate way as they could be. But I think we're really making strides to address some of the issues that affect the military members, and that also can make it more difficult to do our jobs and to deploy. So we want to decrease those outside influences as much as possible, because we all have a job to do.
That's right. And that's what's also amazing about you to me, is that as a social worker, when you go in and you hear these stories, you know, obviously very sad, is it true, do social workers like put on the imaginary like cape or imaginary what do you call it, like a little suit, you zip it up, and then this way any information that comes to you just sticks to the suit, and then when you get done you unzip, you take off your suit, and now you can go back outside and look at the world as, you know, possibly sort of normal place? How do you do that? What is that secret about?
Well, you know, I think it would be really nice to have that magic cape to put on, but I think that individuals who go into the helping professions, you know, psychologists, social workers, counselors, that they do so because they have this innate need to help other people. And so, you know, I mentioned resiliency earlier, and part of not taking on all the problems of the world and the problems of the people that we're meeting with really is looking at ourselves and being resilient. And also not getting caught up in that we are responsible for fixing whatever that problem is that a person has. First of all, if we don't help them to own the situation, and if we don't help them to recognize that they have the skills or the assets or the resources to fix that problem, then they're not going to get better, because we can't fix it for them. So, and it's also making sure that we're processing, whether we have a supervisor, we have a mentor, that we're processing the trauma and the information that we're getting every day. So it's sort of like when you have a bad day and you're texting or calling your girlfriend, you're processing whatever that situation is and not keeping it inside of you. And so I think sometimes the mental health professionals need to remember to do that, that we don't need to carry all of that ourselves. We want to get it out so we're ready to help the next person.
And that was something that we discussed earlier. I was like, oh, did you have a lot of fun, and you in college, university, Florida, I can only imagine. And you were like, well, I was already working on my mental health, so I really can't go to the bars and party because those are my clients. And I was like, oh, good point. Yeah, not so awesome. And it's a lot of self-medication going on out there. And so that's awesome that you're helping people to see that they don't have to drown it in something or a behavior. They can actually work through it with their assets. So when you're resilient, explain that whole resiliency concept to me.
Well, one of the things they talk about in regards to resiliency is the ability to bounce back. So resiliency isn't the fact that you don't have a reaction to something. Resiliency is the fact you have a reaction, but you take that step back and you look at, okay, so this situation happened in my life. What do I need to do now to deal with it, to overcome it, to make it better, to change it, and that you access your resources or your friend's resources or an agency's resources, whatever resources are available to you, and you utilize those. Mm-hmm. We just don't stay stuck in whatever our first reaction was. And that's really what resiliency is all about. And the more resilient we are, the more we build our skills, the more we increase our understanding that stress is going to happen in our lives, but we can overcome it and change it, then the more resilient we're going to be.
That's the goal, is get happy, get over the stress. I always like to say when I hear sad stories, because you wouldn't think I would as a, instructor, it's more about nutrition and massage, but you do hear some very sad stories, and it's just like, wow. And I don't have that little ability like, the people who work in your profession do. And I did try to work in Los Angeles in a high needs school. I thought I wanted to be a physical education teacher for middle school. What was I thinking? And so every day after school, I would be on the sofa in a fetal position crying, just because I'd be like, oh my gosh, these poor kids, they have so many things going against them. And at the time, Bobby wasn't my husband yet, but we were living there in California, and he'd come and he'd be like, so I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I have a feeling this is not the best job for you. And I was like, oh, but I want to help, but it's just so sad, and I can't. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And so then after about 2 months, I thought, you know what, get me back into Beverly Hills, throw me back in the spa with the ladies who have too much time and too much beauty, and they have too many things that they have to. I was like, because then I can kind of process that better. But I have just the utmost respect for the teachers and the counselors in those school districts, because you do know that so much goes on in childhood that it just spills over into their adulthood. And so a lot of people are not comfortable with change, like my dad, he retired from the military after like 30 years. And, he went through that time where he wasn't real sure what he was supposed to do. He was only 53. Mm-hmm. So, young, active, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, because they were shutting down Kelly Air Force Base at the time. So it was like, okay, we don't need you anymore, thank you, bye-bye. And that's what he had dedicated his life to. So what do you tell somebody from that generation who's not comfortable with change? I think the younger generation, I think we've, I say we because I'm 27 for the 15th time. We have come to accept change as part of life. But I think back in the day, it was, you sign up and you always have this constant in your life. And how do you help someone who's not comfortable with that changing?
Well, one of the things that I have found is helpful in people who are transitioning, to have them look at what is something they've always wanted to do. Because oftentimes people who are the generation above us, right? They've gone into a job, they've gone into the military, they've gone into an organization, and they're there for 20, 30, 40 years. And they thought, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to find an occupation, a career, and I stay in there forever, then I retire, and I don't know what they do. They garden, or maybe they travel, or they sit at home. Because nobody ever had them go through and think about, if I had an opportunity to do whatever I wanted in my life, what would I do? So it's taking individuals who are 50, 55, 60, and helping them to find their passions. And is your passion that you've always wanted to travel to all the national parks? If that is, how would you do it? What are the steps that you would take? Well, do you need an RV? Do you need a map? Do you need to Google all the national parks? Do you plan your route? Or is it to go back to school and you get your career in massage therapy and you become a massage therapist at 60? If that's really what their passion is. Or do they want to be a teacher? It's finding maybe you weren't able to fully immerse yourself in your passion in your first career or your first life, but what are you wanting to do now? And then what are the steps that you can take to make that passion come true?
And probably a lot of people have never been asked that question or asked themselves that. They were just on a track and they just did what they knew that they needed to do to make survival. But that's exciting. So I bet you get to see a lot of big eyes, like when they're like, wow, I've never really thought about it.
Right.
And so,
well, you know, and one of the things that's also interesting, because part of what I'm doing as a coach is also helping people to realize what are their passions, because that's part of that transition, that's part of reinventing themselves. And so it's interesting working with couples because also they may have different passions and they never knew it. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't love each other, they're not going to stay married. It's just, wow, I've always wanted to garden and I've always wanted to go rock climbing. Well, then as a couple, figure out how do you both do those things and then still do the things that you enjoy together.
right.
So even when you are a couple, your passions shouldn't exclude being together. But then it should enhance and build upon the relationship.
So a happy medium would be golf. She can enjoy the flowers and he can take his life in his own hand driving the cart.
Yes, yes.
I love golf, and that's why I was like, do you golf? Because I know militaries have the best golf courses. I'm so jelly. And now, do you feel like when they have a recreation like golf, something that they do together, they don't necessarily have to be good at, that would decrease the stress, obviously, and build those relationships stronger? But if they take it too serious, I've seen some people take their golf way too serious. And I'm just like, really? Really? Unless you're playing like 18 holes before breakfast every morning, you can't take it that seriously. But what if you have like different personalities that maybe someone is a little more, you know, aggressive or competitive and the other one is? How do you help those personalities find a happy medium in an activity?
Well, I think one of the things is to help them to identify what are their motivating factors or what are their significant personality characteristics, and recognize and acknowledge that there's differences. And there may be activities then that doesn't work well for them. Or can they learn to accept?
It could make it worse.
Yeah, because, you know, somebody's taking golf lightheartedly, you know, like I would, and then somebody else is more competitive.
It's breaking their gloves.
Or, you know, it's okay that I
Screaming
lose
at
all my
you.
balls, or, you know, whatever, and they might not like that. But so it's really coming to a point in recognizing and accepting the differences, and then agreeing, can we do this together? And this is how it would look like to make it positive for both people? Or is that activity something we can't do?
So having that mental picture of what the goal is, the outcome is, will help you to bring it to fruition versus just throwing caution to the wind. Somebody ends up with a golf club in not the right area. That's the thing, is I've always been a proponent of that, and I've put that on my Facebook several times. You know, you have to see it to believe it and then achieve it. 'Cause
Correct.
if you don't have that. So do you do vision boards in your practice?
I have done vision boards. I've done vision boards for myself, which can be very helpful, and they change over time. And also have other people put those things together and have them really look at what do they want in their life. Like you said, you see it, you believe it, and you achieve it. If we don't have that sort of mental rehearsal of something that we're trying to achieve, then oftentimes somebody can be all over the map and not necessarily concentrating on what they've wanted. And if we're not concentrating, if we're not believing that it's going to happen, we're not attracting that into our life.
Right. So I've tried to do vision boards before. And what I tried to do was use more of the feng shui concept, right? So I tried to say, okay, this is my love corner, this is my prosperity corner of my board, This is my friends and family and helping hands corner. And this is my spirituality corner. And I try to like get pictures that emulate that. And I want to work with my son. You know, he's love bug. He's only 6. So, you know, for him, not so much. How do you, you know, counsel people to approach doing their vision boards? Do you do it kind of with themes, or do you just say, get the magazines, get the pictures, and just let whatever comes out, comes out? What do you think is the best approach?
Well, I think it depends on the person. So from a coaching perspective, when we're looking at what a person wants to have in their life, it's sort of talking with them and getting an idea of their personality and their style, because someone may be more structured in putting their vision board together, and other people may just be very...
Wow.
Right.
Everything.
Yes, and everything goes on. And the other thing is sometimes there's a connection between everything. So in some ways, as you were talking about how you did your vision board, in my mind, I was envisioning your different areas, but I was also thinking, so what's blending all those areas together? What do you have in the middle, or what brings those all together? Because our vision board, hopefully, has a cohesiveness. Because when we have what we want in all areas of our lives, then we have that wholeness. And oftentimes we can't have one area
overpacked and
Right.
the other one just completely dry.
correct, because then we're still not balanced. Now that doesn't mean that everything on our vision board comes to us at one time. I mean, that would be really great because we wouldn't have to wait. Here's my vision board and I have it.
It's my life plan.
Yes, so I'm done. Now I can just enjoy life. Well, we can enjoy life as we're on the journey, but we don't get to all of the destinations on our map at one time, and that's sort of the way it is with a vision board. We don't achieve all of that at one time. We don't experience all of that at one time. So, so again, I sort of let the individual that I'm working with sort of choose how they might structure it, but I also can give them some guidance if they're having, you know, some
And how
difficulty.
often should we update our vision board? Is it obviously that's a personal, because everybody's on different paths and different tracks, but what would you say would be a good time frame to reassess the vision board and revisit it?
Well, as you mentioned, it's individual, but I would think even looking at our passions, and there's a process that I take people through to identify what their passions are. It's also called the passion test. And you can look at that sort of every 6 months, because what has occurred in our life in 6 months to 12 months that may affect our passions and affect of our top 5, what is more important to me today? And, or what have I achieved and that I can continue to do? And so do I have a different top 5 than I did the previous 6 months? So it's really looking at where is that person at in their journey? What are they already accomplishing? What significant changes has there been? You know, have they had a child? Have they bought a business? Are they adding to their businesses? Have they gotten married? Did they get that promotion? So if there's been a significant event in their life, that may change your vision board now because they already had that achievement.
I feel like I need to look at mine every 6 weeks. I feel like my brain, my life, it all moves at like 3,000 miles an hour. And I still don't understand how my son is 6 years old. I'm like, didn't I just have you like yesterday? Like, grew so fast. But I do love the vision board. So is that one of the activities you're going to be doing on the cruise ship? But I know if you tell them you're going to do a passion test, I'm sure that got everybody excited. Like,
So,
signing up for that one for
Yes,
sure.
yes. The passion test is being provided on the reinvention retreat. It's being provided on the Thursday afternoon from 1 to 4. And there's actually another facilitator who is spearheading the passion test, because it's actually a specific program that people go through to be certified to be a passion test facilitator.
Wow.
And so
I like that a lot. I think I want to take the test to be a passion facilitator. Because you know what, when people's eyes open up because they're like, that's what I really love, that is so exciting to me. You know, whatever it is. Like, you know, one day, me and a couple of my clients and my assistant, you know, who's not with us because she's moving to a new house. Congratulations, Dee. You know, we had talked about over the holidays, we did a lot of charity events. And I really loved it. It was very rewarding. And I thought, wow, it's sad because after the holidays, you don't hear about as many charities and opportunities to volunteer. And so I asked one of my clients, I was like, what do you like? And she was like, I've always wanted to help the Seton home. Seton, tomato, Seton. And I was like, really? What's that? She was like, oh, yes, they help young girls and, the babies, and they help education and, just all these different things. And I was like, and her face just lit up, and it was so exciting to me because I was like, that's your passion. I was like, okay, Dee, let's do it. We're going to put together an invite. We're going to have Vegas Little Fitness dancing. We'll have some painting. We'll have some wine tasting. We'll do all these different things, and ladies can come and donate, and then we'll take all the goods down there and just really. And it was just so awesome because, especially when it is part of a charity, their passion, it was just so, it was such a great vibe that we had for those events, because everybody was there for that common purpose of not only having fun and networking and mingling, but doing something good for other people. But I'm sure when they're thinking, if they've come off of a different life's journey, they might need just more than, a few hours. Do you give them like a workbook, or do you take them through like visualization exercises to kind of help pull that out of them versus them just having it on the top of their head? Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that we can help someone determine their passion is to have them think about, what do they want in their life? What are the 15 to 20 things that you would like to do, you would like to achieve, you would like your life to look like? Mm-hmm. And so I work with individuals to identify those. And again, if they're having some problems, I can give them some suggestions. But I also don't want to give too many because they need to be their idea. Oh. And it might take them a little bit of time, because when have they ever been asked? When have they ever been asked to really go deep inside themselves and think about, what do I really want to do? What do I want to achieve? What is something that I've always wanted to do, but I didn't think there was enough money, or I didn't think anybody would do this with me, or anybody would support me? Because we're trying to get away from there being any boundaries on what they want to do. Maybe they want to climb Mount Everest. Okay, then put that down. Don't worry about how it might happen. Right now, identify what it is that you would like to do, you've always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then there's a process of questioning to help them narrow down to their top 5. And then over the course of coaching, several sessions, it's looking at what are the steps to take. And one of the things about achieving our passions, and this is a phrase that we use, is any time that you are faced with a choice, a decision, or an opportunity, always choose in favor of your passion.
Ah, I like that.
Because if you're doing that and you're focusing on, should I buy this car, or do I buy my golf clubs, and I've always wanted to golf, well, what's your passion? Do you need a new car? Do you need new golf clubs? Do you want to go to climb Mount Everest? Well, then you probably need climbing lessons. So what are you doing to really achieve your passion?
And then once they identify it, then you can give them suggestions. And then do you follow up with them? Do they connect with you to say, hey, it's going great, or hey, it's not going so great? How often do you connect with them after they've discovered what their passion is?
Well, it really depends on the individual. I mean, if they want to continue in a coaching relationship, then individually it's decided what fits with that person's life. Coaching sessions can be 3 months, can be 6 months, can be 9 months, and oftentimes you have a session, most of the time by phone or Skype, and it can be once a week, it can be every other week. There's group coaching packages that people, can...
Wow, really? Group? How does that work?
Well, people can connect through Skype or teleconferencing, and you're focusing on aspects of their lives that are similar.
Wow.
So,
group coaching.
That's
fun.
In between the group sessions, you can also have an individual session to talk about things that maybe are more private or they don't want to bring up in the group.
Right.
But you're still doing group learning, and you can, everybody can chime in, you can listen to one another, you can talk about achievements from one phone call to the next. Was any of the homework difficult? So in some ways, it's sort of similar to the concept of group therapy, but we're not dealing with people who have a mental health illness.
Okay.
We're dealing with people who are healthy, but they want to make changes in their lives or going through transitions.
I love it. I think everybody needs a life coach. You know, maybe not every day you need to be coached, but I really do. And I do see the value even in working with youth. But I love what you're doing in working with that transition because, you know, my parents, it's just seeing how there's so many of the multi-generations all living in one home. I think people feel kind of like, where do I really fit? Where am I really going? And to have a life coach to be able to say, hey, I'm feeling a little lost or overwhelmed. And then you give them suggestions on how to prioritize things. Do you ever use like meditation, Pilates yoga? Because I do Pilates yoga. But I would think meditation, guided meditation, does that help them?
It can. I mean, if you look at the studies that are out there on meditation, I've actually been trained in transcendental meditation, and that's what I use myself.
Is that the one where you levitate?
You can. I do not. I have not been practicing long enough or probably quieting my mind enough to do that.
Who can do that? I'm like, what?
But yes, that is something that could happen for people who have been studying the TM model for many, many years. But there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of research out there on meditation and how it helps decrease our stress, it decreases our high blood pressure, it allows us to be more open and to receiving positive things in our lives. So that's one of the things in the way I coach individuals is giving them that as a tool. So, and sometimes it's hard depending on what you've done in your life to quiet your mind, and it's a behavioral change. It's adding that to our day. And a lot of people say, well, my day is so busy. Well, 20 minutes? Is it really that difficult?
It depends how little the animals or the people are that are like, what are you doing, mommy? What are you doing? Or the puppies. Yes. You're trying to like, I'm meditating. Did you see that on Facebook? The man that had the little chihuahua next to him. Did you see I had it on my page. And he was doing downward dog.
Yes.
And the little puppy was there doing the I love that. I was like, look. I was like, my puppy won't do that. My puppy will just lift his leg and pee and run.
Yes.
But I do love that. And what we do here is at Smash, and you know where I'm teaching now in the Starville Party Room, we offer a free family Zumba every Saturday at 9:30. But we also do a free family Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Pilates yoga meditational style. And I used to do it at 7 o'clock on Mondays and Wednesdays. But since we moved back over there and the whole wiggle, 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 Zumba, 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 I was like, yeah, we have to keep it more, a little bit faster pace and use the weights and more challenging. But I love that class so much because I teach it on Sundays. I use different music that's completely relaxing, and we move through it and we just focus on that breathing. And we're not really, I know some classes, they'll just have you lay there and melt into the thing. That's kind of, I'm too ADD for that. I'm like, no, I need to move, I need to stretch. But I find that after I've done that class, like I do feel like everything's kind of settled in me until I go wear some, you know, hot pink, and then I'm like, wee, again. But, so color therapy. Do you use any of that sometimes with people to kind of help them get in that mode maybe for that area where they can be putting that time aside for their deeper inner thoughts?
I have not used that method in my coaching, but I can see where that could be helpful to individuals. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is laughter yoga.
Oh, I love to laugh.
And, you know, in my journey, in my transition from, you know, being in the military, very structured, that's one of the things I've really wanted to add to my life and to help people to do. And again, if you look at research on laughter and watching, you know, positive comedy, not some of that negative stuff, how much, again, that can decrease your stress, your blood pressure, those sorts of things. And people don't think about that. And I really think at times in people's lives in our society, when there's been a lot of pain or there's been an incident that has caused a lot of pain or a lot of sorrow, sometimes we expect people to stay there longer than what is healthy for them. So one of the things that I want to add to my coaching is actually incorporating laughter and healing from pain and, losing somebody. And realizing that healthy laughter, not just laughing at inappropriate jokes or whatever, but that healthy laughter and getting in touch with our breathing, with our laughter and what that does for us, and again, it opens us up, can be so rewarding.
There used to be a meetup here in town a couple of years ago when we first opened the other studio. I actually, I had my assistant, I had 2 assistants at the time, and I said, okay, for today, don't come into the studio. I want you to go do this research and come back and tell me how this class is, because I wanted to put a laughter class in. And they told me the lady would only allow no less than 8 people, because if it was less than 8 people, then I guess she felt like there wasn't enough vibe, between the interaction of 3 or 4 people to create that laughter she really wanted to create. And I have no idea if she still does it or not. But it was great. And the girls came back and they were like, oh my gosh, I felt so good. And I was having a bad day that day. So when you told me I didn't have to come into work, I could go check out this class for you and report back, they were just like, oh, thank God. And they went and they were just like, you don't even know how after the class I went back home and I was just so much more calm with, the dog, the kid, the husband. Everybody was back on the good side, basically is what she said. And I was like, yeah, that's really fun. But then I thought, wow, that's a lot of work, because they used to do that also on Malibu Beach when I lived in LA. And I would see pictures of them, and it'd be a bigger group though. So that would be good. Do you think it could work in a small group, or do you have that same kind of concept that you really need at least 8 or more people?
No, I don't think so, because you can do laughter yoga one-on-one. So again, that's something that I want to add to the coaching that I'm going to do. But it also sounds like we might need to do a class together in your studio.
Oh, I love Pilates yoga. And what I used to do as a massage therapist when I first started my business was I would have some clients who battled depression a lot. And so I would do this thing called smile therapy, and I'd have them sit crisscross applesauce, and it'd be in the massage room, and I would have them, grow through their spine, connect first and third, and close their eyes and just hold a smile, just physically like that for 3 minutes. And they'd be like, Jacqui, I feel ridiculous. And I'm like, I know, just close your eyes, just hold that smile. And my hypothesis on that was that if we could trick our physical body to create our brain to release those endorphins, that after the 3 minutes, you just couldn't help but to smile. And have you ever heard of that?
Not specifically. So, but from what you're saying, it's the same thing as if we're deliberately switching our thoughts to being positive. So I can,
even when you don't feel it.
Correct. I mean, automatically think about something that you're grateful for, something that you're thankful for. I mean, every morning if we woke up and we listed 3 things that we were grateful for, and before we go to sleep, we're making another gratitude list. So yes, definitely that's going to have an effect, because you're thinking, I mean, you can't not smile and have positive thoughts. I mean, you're smiling, so somehow, even though we start off negative, it's like, okay, I have to smile, I really don't want to do this, but I'm doing it.
I'm a toothache, man. I just you better smile. I told my son that the other day because he was kind of cranky about having to go to his little summer school program. He's like, no, I want to help Daddy. I was like, no, you need to go and learn how to read, write, and count your money. And he was making a face, and I was like, you better smile. I was like, you are the only person I know who has every reason in the world all the time to smile. And so I was like, it is your job to smile. And so I was making it such a joke, but I was being really serious. Is that, I was like, let me see a smile. And then once he fine, I'll smile. And then you could see he felt better. But it is about tricking that brain, making that physical mental connection. And I'm super a big believer in that. And so your laughter therapy, your passion test, that's going to be exciting for the cruise ship. I wish I could get away, but that's the January time. And in the fitness world, that's when everybody makes their resolutions. So that would be a fun thing we could do too, is maybe do a vision board activity for the community and let them come in, bring your own magazines, and then you could, give them your expertise, because mine will obviously be pink. But thank you so much, Denise, for coming in. I really appreciate you coming in to see my happy little studio here and having coffee with me. And I was she was laughing at me because I actually blanked out my little My little peace sign now has bling. I don't know if you can see that or not, but whatever. And she was like, really? I was like, you just you can't help but to smile when you see bling. So so definitely look for her on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/Denise Thompson, and it's Denise. So nothing
Correct.
weird, because I spell my name all weird, Jacqi. So everybody misspells it, but that's okay. So Denise Thompson on Facebook, and then if you want to save your little dollars before January, when is the last day that they can actually reserve to be on the cruise ship and be a part of the reinvention retreat?
Right now, there's still an early bird rate
Oh, good.
until the end of August. So August 31st, the early bird rate of $299. But if they actually will connect with me on Facebook, I can also give them an additional discount. And then after the 31st of August, it goes up to $599.
Wow, the early bird really does get the worm. Wow, and then to connect with Denise on Facebook, you get even more. That means there's more extra spending money available.
Yes, yes. So when you go to Cozumel and you want to,
That's
do some
exciting.
shopping, they have wonderful jewelry there. They have wonderful clothes. They also have, you can go to the beach and just relax. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. There's still, definitely balcony rooms available, which if you cruise, I highly recommend a balcony room. Have your coffee as you're sailing. It's just the best. And see the
sounds
sunrise
beautiful.
and the sunset. And
$299, that is not bad at all. And where are y'all flying out? Oh, so where do you fly into to be able to board the ship?
to Tampa.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you got to fly into Tampa, board the ship, and then it brings you back into Tampa.
Correct.
That's going to be exciting. $299, and then plus an additional discount if you get with her on Facebook. So Denise Thompson, don't forget. Well, I'm super excited, and if you want to get in shape before you go, let me know. I got some corsets. All right, but that'll be it for all today. Thank you so much for logging in. Bye.